What if the last 12 years of your life, I mean, your family, your peace, your freedom, what if all of that was just a neurological coping mechanism? Like a hallucination designed to help your brain survive endless, agonizing torture.
Right, which is just a terrifying concept to wake up to.
Totally terrifying. And today, we're doing a deep dive into D.P. Kirk's wild 2017 novel, San Vitae, The Awakening. Our mission today is to give you a curated reader's guide, and we're going to use Chapter 5, which is called Night Out, as our primary lens.
Yeah, that chapter is perfect for this.
Because we really want to deconstruct this one specific chapter to show you the massive, mind-bending mechanics that are operating right beneath the surface of this universe.
It really is the perfect diagnostic tool for the entire book. For anyone listening who loves dense lore, visceral action, and psychological twists that basically rewrite the rules of the setting you're reading, San Vitae is just a masterclass in narrative misdirection.
It really doesn't let you just passively read it.
No, not at all. The author forces you to actively engage with the text because the ground is constantly shifting under your feet.
Right. So let's set the baseline quickly, just assuming you are already somewhat familiar with the broad strokes of post-apocalyptic dark fantasy. We're operating in a world scarred by a cataclysm where 3 celestial spheres basically crashed from the heavens.
Right, the spheres.
Yeah. And we have this societal divide. There's the immortal Santerrie, who consume vitae to maintain their power, and the mortal Sans, who live under the Daedrith covenant, acting as donors. But Chapter 5 completely upends what you think you know about this whole dynamic.
It really does, because it starts so normally.
Exactly. We open on a seemingly mundane premise. Our protagonist, Kurien, is dragged out into the city of Roantha for a night on the town by his human best friend, Tippin.
And the tone of those opening pages is incredibly deceptive. I mean, Tippin is throwing chalk balls at Kurien in an alleyway. He's complaining about his restrictive clothing, boasting about a local river maiden who washed him with sweet-smelling oils.
It's very buddy comedy.
Yeah, exactly. You're lured into this familiar, lighthearted buddy comedy rhythm. It establishes this baseline of normalcy that Kirk is about to violently deconstruct.
And that disruption happens literally the moment Kurien's heightened perception kicks in. Because Kurien is a Sanite rather than a standard Santerrie, so we already know his relationship with Vitae is biologically different.
Right, he harnesses that demonic aspect.
Yes, and he absorbs Vitae from the environment. So through his feral, glowing eyes, he spots this lingering orange, quote-unquote, tainted aura in the alley. And when Kurien sees this orange miasma, it tells me right away this isn't normal Vitae.
No, it's definitely not.
It feels synthetic, like someone is heavily polluting the biological magic system we've been introduced to.
And that pollution is actually the key to understanding the underground economy of Roantha. The magic system in San Vitae is deeply transactional anyway, but what Kurien is detecting is basically biological money laundering.
Oh, that's a great way to put it. Biological money laundering.
Yeah, because the arrogant, wealthy, mortal merchants in the city, they've figured out a way to bypass the traditional Vitae hierarchy. They're addicting their own human servants to heavy traditional pharmaceuticals.
Which is just so dark. They literally wait for the servant's bloodstream to become completely saturated with these drugs, and then they harvest that corrupted Vitae.
Exactly. They're passing cheap street drugs through a human filter to synthesize a high-end narcotic for themselves. It gives them this temporary, wildly unstable sense of euphoric power.
It's brutal.
It is. And the orange vermilion miasma Kurien sees is just the residual energy of someone who recently fed on one of these drug victims. The sheer brutality of that setup tells you everything you need to know about the power vacuum in this world.
Yeah, these merchants aren't just exploiting labor. They are biologically corrupting their workforce to distill a narcotic. And Kurien's disgust in this moment is so palpable.
And the abrupt end to the chapter really weaponizes that disgust.
He doesn't just, investigate the aura. He uses his enhanced Sanite strength to literally tear through the solid brick wall of the alley. He's ripping the mortar apart with his bare hands.
Just tearing it down.
Yeah. And behind that wall, he finds a hidden passage with an illuminated glass cylinder. And inside the cylinder is the shadowy outline of a nude young woman. The lighthearted banter from earlier vanishes instantly.
Instantly. You are suddenly staring at a dark, conspiracy-laden horror scene.
Yeah.
The pacing of that reveal is just exceptional. Kirk uses the cylinder to force a major structural pivot. But, Kurien's reaction to finding that passage goes way beyond just righteous anger.
Right, it gets very psychological.
Exactly. His internal monologue reveals a profound isolation. Kurien represents a necessary evil to the people of Rouen. The mortals need the immortals to protect them from the waste and the corrupted beasts, but they deeply resent their protectors at the same time.
And Kurien's realization of his own isolation is really what brings us to the core character dynamic of the book. Like, even in the company of his best friend, Kurien is completely alone.
He really is.
He notes in Night Out that as a mortal, Tippin can never fully understand the burden of immortality. Like the flower maid who gave Tippin the sweet oils. She was terrified of Kurien. The barrier between them isn't just about lifespan.
No, it's a fundamental inability to share the human experience.
Exactly. And that barrier extends to the other defining relationship in Kurien's life, which is his devotion to his Covenness Myasuchi.
Right, the leader who fought to keep Rouen independent from the Humanis La Luna, those puritanical, pure-blood zealots.
Yeah. And this dynamic could so easily fall into that classic stale trope of the brooding immortal, hopelessly in love with his unapproachable boss. It runs the risk of feeling like a permanent, unrequited crush mixed with a magical bodyguard contract.
Which we've seen a million times.
Right. But Kirk keeps it so grounded in brutal political reality.
Because Myasuchi isn't keeping Kurien at arm's length just to generate romantic tension. She distances herself because the survival of her city literally depends on it.
She has no choice.
Exactly. If she shows favoritism or lets her emotions dictate her rule, she risks the fragile treaty she holds with the Humanis La Luna and the broader Santerrie Council. She has to project absolute, unyielding authority.
Like when that arrogant merchant disrespects her in her office earlier in the day, she doesn't flinch. She doesn't argue. She just sips her crystal glass of vintage wine and lets the silence completely crush him.
She is the political eye of the storm. Any emotional connection with Kurien would completely compromise that stability.
And the tragedy of those necessary emotional walls becomes even more devastating when you track Tippin's arc through the rest of the novel. The interaction in Chapter 5 is, well, it's actually a tragedy hiding in plain sight.
It really is.
Because the vulnerability that Kurien observes in the mortals isn't just a philosophical observation, it's grim foreshadowing. Tippin, the loyal friend throwing chalk balls in the alley, he eventually falls victim to the exact corruption they stumble across.
Yeah, he gets addicted to the tainted Vitae and turns into a commoner.
It's awful.
When Kurien encounters Tippin later, deep in the utility tunnels beneath the city, the transformation is just horrific. Tippin is violently, unrecognizably angry.
He blames Kurien, doesn't he?
He does. He blames Kurien for the state of the city for not turning him into a Santerrie so he can defend himself. And the resulting fight is bloody and visceral. I mean, Tippin slashes Kurien's back wide open.
The guy who was joking about vintage tears in his pants a few chapters ago is suddenly trying to rip his best friend's throat out.
Yeah, and knowing that tragic fate makes the lighthearted banter in Night Out incredibly poignant on a second read. It underscores that Kurien's isolation isn't self-pity. Everyone he loves is either politically untouchable, like Myasuchi, or incredibly fragile, like Tippin.
And Kurien's realization that everyone is fragile isn't just about Tippin. It's the exact vulnerability that leads him to tear open the brick wall and find the glass cylinder.
Right, because the girl inside isn't just a victim of the local merchant narcotic trade. She's the first crack in the facade of their entire reality.
Which brings us to the most ambitious aspect of San Vitae. Because up until this point, as a reader, you are tracking a very dark, gothic, post-apocalyptic fantasy. You have biological magic, covenants, sword fights, political intrigue.
Classic dark fantasy stuff.
Yeah, but the girl in the cylinder is the gateway to a massive, hidden, technological conspiracy. The narrative just executes this massive pivot into high-concept sci-fi, and it completely pulls the rug out from under you.
The shift is so jarring, but it's deeply earned. Because the biggest revelation in the story revolves around Kurien realizing that 12 entire years of his life were a complete fabricated illusion.
This part blew my mind.
I mean, he experiences a reality where he and Yunamashi finally managed to be together, where they had a son named Han, and where he found genuine peace.
He literally thinks he's living his happily ever after. He's in this beautiful dream where he's gathering his son into a carriage to escape a battle, and then the carriage just disappears. His clothes vanish.
Reality breaks.
Yeah. He's suddenly staring at sterile gray stone walls, his wrists bored through with cylindrical holes. The peaceful life was a neurological defense mechanism.
Because the reality is that he has been locked in an Inquisitor's vault.
Mm.
The Santerrie and the Humanis La Luna factions that are sworn enemies, Mind you, they've orchestrated a joint operation.
Because they're terrified of him.
Exactly. They share a profound existential fear of the Sanites. So Kurien has been trapped in a mechanized Iron Maiden, continually pierced by needles that are draining his pitch pure vitae.
But like, why go to all that trouble? If they fear the Sanites, why not just execute him? The mechanics of this extraction process suggest his pitch pure vitae is powering something massive. It isn't just about neutralizing a threat, it's about harvesting a biological resource.
Right, and the extraction of that pitch pure vitae is the connective tissue between the gothic fantasy and the overarching sci-fi narrative.
Okay, here we go.
Because as the perspective expands, we're introduced to the Tokyo Alternate Space Cooperative, or TASC. We start following characters like Lotus, Kiki, and the syndicate broker named Juswain.
And this is where the reader has to seriously buckle in. We jump from dark fantasy alleys to a minister of science experimenting with alternate space drives, managing riots, and radiation indicators. Like, how does the biological magic of the Santerrie connect to an alternate space program in Tokyo?
Well, the pitch pure vitae acts as a necessary biological conduit. The TASC is experimenting with shared memories and characters literally swapping consciousness.
Wow.
Yeah. To anchor a human consciousness during an alternate space jump, or to transfer a consciousness from one physical vessel to another, they require a highly conductive, biologically pure fluid. So the Gothic magic system is essentially the fuel for the advanced sci-fi technology.
Oh, that explains the shared memories and the consciousness swapping. The Vitae is transferring quantum data. It's allowing memories to be written and overwritten, which mirrors exactly what happened to Kurien in the Inquisitor's vault.
Exactly.
The machine draining him was likely using his own biological conduit to feed the illusion directly into his brain to keep him docile while they harvested him.
And the technological applications of this system go even further. Think about the Salvation, the living spaceship orbiting the moon. The ship features a hull made of adaptive nanoparticle emulsions that can spontaneously regenerate when breached.
Wait, so if the Vitae is a biological conduit, then the nanoparticle emulsion on the Salvation must be a synthesized version of Santerrie biology.
Yes.
The ship is regenerating its hull the exact same way a Santerrie regenerates their physical body after a sword fight.
That's precisely the underlying logic of the world. The ship is using a technological mimicry of immortality, and it needs that regenerative capability because it's frequently breached by demons phasing through an alternate space rift.
Which ties it all together.
Right. The demonic aspect that Kurien channels as a Sanite is fundamentally linked to the alternate space dimensions the TASC is trying to navigate.
The scope of that is just staggering. Kirk is forcing the reader to constantly reevaluate the parameters of the world. Like, when Kurien is confused about whether he's awake or dreaming, or when the narrative suddenly shifts to tasting chicken replacement meals in Tokyo, while Kurien thinks he's eating red bean ice cream.
Yeah.
The cognitive dissonance is completely intentional.
The author totally refuses to hold your hand through these transitions. You experience the exact same fractured, disorienting reality that the protagonist experiences. It turns the act of reading into an active investigation.
You're really figuring it out alongside the characters.
Exactly. You are uncovering the truth of the cataclysm, the spheres falling from the sky, the true nature of the Antividi, the purpose of the orbital ships, alongside characters whose own memories are deeply compromised.
And Chapter 5 is basically a microcosm of this entire structural philosophy. It starts with a casual stroll, a bit of banter, and ends by literally breaking down the walls of reality to reveal the hidden machinery operating in the dark.
It definitely sets the precedent that whatever you think you are looking at, you're only seeing the surface level.
So if you're looking for a reader's guide to San Vitae, The Awakening, the recommendation is pretty clear.
Oh, absolutely. If you're tired of predictable dystopian fiction and want a book that demands your active engagement, this is a must-read. The blending of visceral action, intricate political treaties, and mind-bending technological conspiracies really rewards readers who pay attention to the details.
Come for the dark lore of the covenants and the kinetic action scenes, but definitely stay for the heartbreaking character dynamics and the sweeping reality shifts. It's a masterclass in narrative ambition that constantly keeps you off balance.
Couldn't agree more.
Which leaves us with a final, lingering thought, inspired by the tragic mechanics of Kurien's 12-year illusion in the vault. If a machine pumped a completely fabricated, beautiful decade of life directly into your consciousness, a life where you felt truly safe, where you built a family, where you finally found peace, and then you violently woke up to a nightmare reality where your body was broken and your world was a cage.
Uh-huh.
Would you fight to survive in the nightmare, or would you spend the rest of your life mourning the loss of a beautiful illusion? Think about that the next time you wake up from a dream you desperately want to return to.